Hi spooky friends, welcome back to Kelly Does Stuff. Today we are going to make some spooky trees. I like a ridiculous amount of trees in my Halloween village. I think Department 56 are probably my favorite. Their quality is really great, they have good variety, but they're expensive. So I'm always looking for cheaper options. Today we're gonna make some trees from a floral stem that you can get at Michael's. It's $9.99, but they always have coupons, at least 20% off. So you should be able to get it for cheaper than that. I made these five trees from about 1.5 of those stems from Michael's. Other supplies that you will need is your scrap XPS foam. So go into your scrap bin. If you don't have scrap XPS foam or you don't have XPS foam, go to Home Depot. You gotta get the foam. It's like, it'll change your life. When it comes to Halloween creating. You can get a 2 foot by 2 foot piece of foam for about $6, and you'll be able to use this for a lot of things, so it's a very good investment. You're also going to want a hot glue gun and some moss. You'll also need like some rocks. Those are like the main supplies to make these trees. So let's go ahead, let's make some spooky trees.
First thing we want to do is snip off a couple of those branches. If you find that this gets a little challenging, it's mostly because of that outer covering. Once you kind of get through that, the wire snips pretty easily. Once you have your branches, you're going to use some black electrical tape to secure them together. And we're going to make a couple different types of trees. I'm going to show you the fastest, simplest one first. You can bend and manipulate all those little branches. If you don't like the way the tree is laying together, you don't like the shape or the direction of the branches, you can kind of play around with those. And then here I'm just deciding, do I want to do 2 branches, 3 branches, whatever you want your tree to look like. For this first one, I'm going kind of simple and I'm just going to do 2 branches, and you can see that they're not even the same length there, and that is totally fine. I'm wrapping it with that electrical tape, and you can get this at the dollar store if you don't have it. The next thing you want to do is attach your tree to your styrofoam base. The best way to do this is to grab an X-Acto knife or a blade of some kind and make the hole. I typically like to do things in a completely ridiculous and inefficient way, as you can see with the paintbrush. Next, you want to secure your tree in place with some hot glue. Hot glue will eat through the foam. If you see it start to bubble, that's how you know it's too hot. You can flip your glue gun down to the low setting, or if you don't have that option, I'll just unplug my hot glue gun and continue to use it. That's cooling the glue down enough to work with it, and then when it gets too cool, just plug your glue gun back in. And you'll see that I'm pooling some glue here at the base, and that's where we're going to attach our rocks. I have some rocks in my yard that I use. You can also find some at the dollar store. The main reason for this is to add some weight at the bottom to counteract the top heaviness of the tree. Now, right now my base is pretty big, so I didn't need those rocks. That tree was standing up by itself. But I'm going to make this platform smaller, something similar to what you might see with a Limax or Department 56 tree, how they have those round bases. The smaller you go with your base, the more important the weight at the bottom is going to be. If you don't like the rocks, you could maybe try some washers and feed the stem or the base of your trunk through the washer and let that washer add the weight. The look of your bases is really up to you. When creating it, you might want to think about where you're going to be putting your tree. A lot of the bases of my trees are hidden because I'm putting them behind buildings. Next, we're going to add some black acrylic paint. I'm using black because I just want to continue the look of the tree, which is all black, but you could make your trunk or your base really interesting with some different shades and textures and details. Next, we're going to cover the base with some moss. I got this at Michael's. You can definitely buy it at the dollar store, and that moss is going to kind of go up the tree a little bit to also cover that electrical tape. To help protect your fingers from being very badly burned by that hot glue, grab a bigger handful of moss than you actually want on there to press into that hot glue. It'll give you a little bit of a barrier, and then when the glue is completely cool, you can pull the excess moss off. And if you want a bit of a tidy base without moss sticking up all over the place, you could take a scissor and go trim any excess pieces. Sometimes your moss will come in sheets like this, and for a project like this, I like to break it up into small pieces. It allows me to shape it around my base easier, and it will stretch the moss a little bit further. Just keep in mind that doing this does kind of stir up a lot of dust, which could be a little bit agitating. All right, there's our first tree. Fast and simple. But what if we want our tree to be a little bit taller? You're just going to start out with a bigger piece for your main branch, and then repeat the process of adding smaller branches using that electrical tape, bend and manipulate your wires. For this tree, I'm going to go with 1 main branch and then add 2 smaller branches. Once we have our tree and rocks glued into place on our piece of styrofoam, we want to work on building up the trunk of the tree, and we're going to use some hot glue to do this. And basically we're just going to start at whatever point we want that trunk to be wider and bring that hot glue all the way down to the base of the rocks. This covers up that electrical tape, and it also smooths and evens out where you've attached those shorter length branches to your main branch. I like to work with my hot glue gun on the high setting and have that glue as hot as possible because that will help it flow nicely down the tree. If you find that it's flowing a little too much and basically just pulling at the bottom, do a couple layers and let it completely cool. Then go back in with your hot glue gun. This will allow more of those layers to cool and settle at the trunk. You can also pick up your tree, turn it upside down or rotate it, and this will allow you to kind of control the shape of that glue and the placement when it dries. Now for this one, I'm going to keep the base of my styrofoam a little bit bigger. I might shape it a little bit, add a little bit of detail, because I want to create kind of a little bit of a scene to go along with this tree. We're going to paint again, and this time we're going to paint the trunk of our tree. And to help that paint stick to the hot glue, we're going to wipe it down once it's completely cool with a paper towel. And then let's go ahead and add a few things to create a little scene around our tree. Okay, I want to show you another scene that you could create, and it kind of feels like the possibilities for this are almost endless. Just let your imagination run wild and have fun with it. You're almost gonna create kind of like a separate little accessory. Limax and Department 56 often have some accessories that will have a tree as part of it, but then there might be a skeleton propped up against it, reading a magazine, or witches dancing around the tree. So this is kind of an opportunity if you're looking for extra little accessories or mini little scenes, you could use these trees to do that. We're doing that same process, but this time I'm going to add a little bit of gray into my platform to give a little bit of detail. I'm going to go with some green moss this time, and then I'm going to add stuff that looks a little bit like dirt. And I am getting this from the moss. So when you start to break up that moss, you'll have lots of little tiny bits of it left over. And if you craft a little bit better than I do, when you break up that moss, break it up over a bowl so it'll collect all of that little dust and dirt bits into a bowl that'll be easy to scoop out and attach to your platform. And for this type of ground cover, I am applying some PVA glue with a paintbrush to help that dirt stick. To finish up my scene, I hot glued a skull, and then I'm going to add this tombstone. This is by Limax, and it comes in a pack of 3 tombstones available now at Michael's if you're watching this in present time. And lastly, I want to show you one more thing you could do to create the trunk of your tree, and that is to add a dowel. I have found these at the dollar store. You can also get them at Michael's, and just cut it to the size that you want. And this could be helpful if you have already used up that tallest branch in that floral stem and you've got kind of the smaller ones left, but you still want to make a tall tree. Once again, we're going to use that hot glue to widen out the trunk of our tree. Make it as wide or as skinny as you want. And here it is finished, and let's compare this one to that first one we did with just the branches. And that's it, friends. Several different types of spooky trees just from one type of floral stem from Michael's. Let's go ahead and take a look at all of them again. I did make another one that just had a small circular base, and I added some kind of gravelly little rock and stones there, this one right here. So just get creative with it, have fun, think about where in your display you might want to display these, and let that kind of guide you for how you create your tree. And speaking of displays, let's take a look at what it might look like in our displays. Thank you all so much for joining me in creating these spooky trees. I would love it so very much if you would give this video a like, share it with somebody who also wants to make some spooky trees. I look forward to seeing you guys next time, and happy creating!
Not cheese. Maybe they do good cheese. Probably not. And I also, other supplies that you will need, go to Home Depot right now. Run, hurry, you're not going.